Welcome to another awesome and exciting episode of Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stefan Spencer, and today we have Allan Dib with us. Allan is a serial entrepreneur, a rebellious marketer, a technology expert, grown and successfully exited multiple businesses in various industries. Allan grew his business from startup to 4 years later being named by Business Review Weekly as one of Australia's fastest growing companies. And he has an amazing book he's going to tell us all about. But first, Allan, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Stefan. It's just a pleasure to be on your show.
So you have this great book called The One-Page Marketing Plan, and that kind of evokes some cognitive dissonance there, because aren't marketing plans supposed to be pretty exhaustive, comprehensive, like deep into the weeds of statistics and trends and competitor analysis and so forth? And you're talking about it being a one-pager. Like, how does that work?
So that's a great question, Stefan. And so that's a question I often get. And it's something that I used to think myself. I remember in my first business, I actually hired a consultant to help me put together a business plan and a marketing plan. And I spent many thousands of dollars. We spent months doing it. We put together a plan that was probably 70 pages long and had charts and graphs and projections and all of that. And guess what happened to that plan? It got shoved in the top drawer of my desk, never to see the light of day again until we were moving offices and getting out of there. I opened my drawer, dusted off, and then threw it in the trash thinking, I can't believe I wasted all of that money with that consultant. And so to me, the best kind of plan is the plan that you will actually use, right? So it's not something that has to be war and peace, but it's something that's easy for you to understand and practical to use.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And it reminds me of a quote. I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's something like, we don't rise to the occasion, but we fall back on the highest level of our training or preparation,
Yes.
something along those lines.
Yes.
So if
Yes.
we don't have an implemented plan, we got nothing.
Exactly. Well, and I mean, another quote that I often quote is, knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing. So you might as well not bother if you're not actually going to implement it. So a plan that you will actually use. And my hope was, and in fact, long before this was a book, this was a process that I was using with my clients. Why? Because I was trying to get my clients to create marketing plans, and of course I got pushback. It was like, no, too difficult, too hard, too expensive. I'll do it another time. And so by necessity, I created a plan that they could quickly do in 20 to 30 minutes that would actually be practical, that they wouldn't shove in their desk drawer, that could sit on their desk, could be pinned up in their office, that was practical. And then when you got more and better information, you could update that plan at any time. You didn't have to rework through 70 pages and involve consultants and all of that sort of thing. It's something that when you got better information. So if you've got better information about who your target market is, or messaging that lands better with your target market, then you can update that plan at any time and have all of your people on the same page as well.
Yeah, that sounds great. And like, does this actually happen? You get reader feedback saying, we've implemented, we got so much value that we got a 10 bazillion percent ROI from the cost of the book, or something like that?
Well, literally every single day, and I'm not making this up, I open my Gmail and I have what I call, I guess, fan mail, for want of another word. It's like, wow, this process really clarified things for us. It gave us a structure. And when I look at some of the reviews on Amazon, people are talking about the book having delivered more clarity to them than the years that they spend getting an MBA. Now, I'm not pumping my own tires. That's the words of of other people, and it's not because I invented anything or created something. Literally, I took direct response marketing and made it accessible on a single page canvas. That's what I did. So I didn't invent direct response marketing. I didn't invent planning or anything like that. But I created, I think, a breakthrough in the way that people think about direct response marketing and plan that out. And so that, I think, has been something that a lot of people have been wanting, because direct response marketing is complex. There's a lot of moving parts. And I remember when I was first learning it in my first business, I'd attend a seminar or read a book or listen to a mentor, and I always got value from all of those. I'm not putting any of those down, but there was nothing that kind of really took me from on the journey from step one, step two, step three. What do I need to do? What process do I need to follow to get new clients in the door? And so I created the process and wrote the book that I wish I had when I was a dead broke IT geek trying to get new clients in the door and not knowing how to do that.
Right, right. So the book has sold how many copies now?
I think we're getting on close about 250,000 copies now. So it's
That's serious.
I haven't had a look at the stats lately, but it was around 250,000 copies last time I looked. So yeah.
And how are you leveraging that in your business? Because I don't know of many authors who make a really substantial living just from selling their books. I'm sure there's some out there, but maybe you're one of them.
There are some out of there, and I am one of them.
Nice.
Well, I mean, I do six figures just from book royalties, and a decent six figures. I know another author who does seven figures from just book sales, but book sales are not my main business. It's a nice business unit on its own. But having said that, you're right. These results are not typical. The typical author generally doesn't make a lot from book royalties and book sales. So, and I do leverage that into my coaching. I'm releasing a course based on the book. So I have a lot of back end. The vast majority of my revenue is back end, even though the book does pretty well. But the vast majority is back end. So it's people who've been through the book or heard me on a podcast like we're speaking now, or been through my process somehow, or seen me speak, or whatever else, and we basically have a conversation and see if we're right for each other. And it's something, I think having a book is something that really can fuel your inbound marketing, because first of all, it's a great positioning tool. If what you've got is something that helps people, it's going to create inbound leads. Like literally every day I open my inbox and I see people who say, there's people who just say thank you, it changed the way I think and all of that sort of stuff. But there are people who say, hey, do you offer coaching? Do you offer a course or whatever? And literally if you ever look at our website right now, we don't have any of that stuff published on the website because I'm pretty selective of who I work with. And I think that's a fun way to do business, where you open your inbox and there are people who are asking you to work with you, rather than you waking up in the morning and thinking, right, I've got to do 20 cold calls today to get someone in and convince them to do business with me. So it's a really fun way of doing business.
Yeah, it certainly is. And it puts you in the driver's seat too for your own destiny, because if you're making the decision wwhether you're going to work with them and you're not in desperation mode just trying to pay the bills, that gives you some significant leverage. Now I'm curious, what are these kind of back end offerings and how are they structured? Is it a some sort of funnel with multiple upsells? Is there like a super high level, high ticket program, maybe some sort of elite mastermind or something like that? How do you have this all structured?
Yeah, so we it feels weird as a marketer saying this, but we don't have any kind of crazy crazy funnels with upsells, downsells, all of that sort of stuff. I mean, we get more sophisticated as we go, but what I find when you have an offer that converts, really it's about having conversations with people, and conversations lead to conversions. In terms of the specific offerings that we have, I've got a program called Business Boardroom. That's where me and my team work very intensely with a business owner, and the business owner is usually someone who's doing between $1 million to $20 million in revenue. They've already got a business that's working. They've already got an offer that converts, and then we really just light the fire in terms of putting together a tactical plan and a strategic plan, and getting them the right people in place in their business, because almost every business owner I've ever spoken to has had the the circumstance where they've engaged an external marketing agency, and the external marketing agency, maybe they've done some good work for them, but they've redesigned their website logo or whatever. But when they look at the return on investment, it's usually not been there. And I highly believe that you as the business owner need to own the marketing strategy. Doesn't mean you have to do all of the stuff, but you need to you need to know what the strategy is, and developing your own internal marketing capability is so critical. And so that means investing in team members, and it doesn't mean that you have to have all the people who are technical and copywriters and all of that in-house. It can mean that, but for example, like we employed someone who was a specialist graphic designer to help us with our rebrand, right? So that's an external person. But for the operational stuff, you want to develop your own marketing intellectual property. You don't want to be reliant on an external marketing agency, even if they're doing a really, really good job. You don't want to be reliant on someone who maybe won't do a good job in the future or whatever. Now, I'm not against agencies. I love agencies, and I use agencies, and I train agencies. I believe the days of the generalist marketing agency are over, and I think now is the time when specialist marketing agencies are really the people that you want to work with. So, and I talk about this when it comes to media strategy. I say, look, hire the person who's a pay-per-click specialist. Hire the person who's an SEO expert, right? But, the days of having like just a general marketing agency who's just doing everything, I think those days are over. So the whole thing, my whole value proposition is me and my team, we will help you build your internal marketing capability so that you're not beholden to someone else, and no one will ever care about your business and run your business the way you do. So that's what we do in the business boardroom program. We really work intensely on helping business owners develop their own internal marketing capability.
Yeah, that's really important. And what they say, that if you're a jack of all trades, you're a master of none. If
that's exactly
your
right.
agency says that, oh yeah, we're great at SEO, great at paid search, great at social media,
Exactly.
great at 15 other things as well, they almost invariably suck at all of them.
No doubt. And I look at someone like you who's you're at the top of your game when it comes to SEO. I can't think of anyone who would even come close. And how much time and energy and that you spend on learning and staying cutting edge with all of that. There's no possible way that someone can be at your level in SEO, and then at that level in LinkedIn, and then at that level in pay-per-click, and then at that level in copywriting. It's just it's humanly impossible. So,
Yeah.
If you're going to work with high-level people, they're usually specialists. They're not going to be generalists.
Right, and you get even more specialized as your standards increase. So let's say that you're working with a pay-per-click agency, and they handle both your Google ads and your Facebook ads.
Yes.
They're probably not top shelf in both.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like even just with Google ads, which would include YouTube ads and Google Display and Google search ads, you find that the top people specialize even in that little niche. Like we mutually know one of the top YouTube advertising agency owners in the world. So.
And even within a media, there's specialization. Like I was talking to someone the other day, and they do LinkedIn, but they only do LinkedIn outbound. Like they're not working on LinkedIn inbound. So you can be a sub niche of a niche, which and I think we're going to see more of that. So they purely specialize in cold outbound LinkedIn. So they're not worrying about how you set up your profile. They're not worrying about some the content that you're posting, videos and all of that. They're purely focused on cold outbound, whereas others are kind of more focused on the content side and things like that. So the point being is, people want to work with specialists. Who's the specialist in this field, rather than someone who just has a laundry list of products and services and is a generalist and does everything in a mediocre fashion.
Right. But then which specialists do you end up working with? Like which categories and which experts within each of those categories? Because you could be doing Pinterest and Reddit and
Hmm.
everything else, like 15
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
social platforms, and then you could do all these different paid media platforms as well. You could be doing SEO and I don't know, let's say offline advertising,
Yep.
uh, magazine ads, billboards. I mean, it just goes on. Where do you stop?
Well, this is where having a plan that gives you clarity works. Like, so I'll give you an example. So, the house that I'm currently living in, I moved in about 6 months ago. We spent about 2 years building it. That's another story on its own. But the point being, yeah,
That
build a
happens a lot,
story.
apparently. I hear a lot of
Yeah,
horror stories.
builder stories are never fun stories. But anyway, that we would digress too much if I went into that. But the point I want to make is the first 6 months, nothing happened. Right? We spent 6 months working with the architect. Working with the council, arguing with the council, but we were working with the architect and we were figuring out, right, where's the garages going to go, where's the pool going to go, what's the balcony going to overlook, and all of that sort of thing. And so we spent a lot of time planning it out. So we built the house before we ever built it, right? So if we had have just started laying bricks, digging foundations and all of that without a plan, without a blueprint, I mean, that would have been disaster. Still, even with a plan and a blueprint, it doesn't always go to plan. But having said that, you need that plan, you need that blueprint, and that will inform the tactical side. So we worked out with the architect, right, we're going to have brick here, we're going to have concrete here, and all of that. And then from that plan, from that blueprint, from that high level strategy, now we know what we need to do tactically. Now we know, and that's exactly the same with marketing. We want to figure out, right, who's our target market? What's the messaging that's really going to land with them and work with them, and that will inform a lot of the media that we use, the tactics that we use. Okay, so we find out they hang around on LinkedIn a lot, so we work with LinkedIn. So we decide what media we use. SEO, we want to get more inbound leads, so we work on SEO. So the strategy is going to dictate the tactical, whereas a lot of people do it the other way. They kind of do random acts of marketing. They kind of, let's do a rebrand, let's do a website, let's try a bit of SEO, let's do a little bit of pay per click, and they do random stuff, and then they're surprised when they get random results, right? So, and when you ask them who's your target market, they say, oh, everybody. I'm a doctor, lawyer, medical guy, agency, or whatever. I can help everyone, right? So,
Right.
so. So the point being is, if you do random acts of marketing, if you do random stuff, you're going to get random results, and your strategy will dictate the tactics that you use. And so, rather than you being driven by tactics, which is kind of chasing that bright shiny object. So today Pinterest is hot, so we do Pinterest. Tomorrow it's Instagram. After that it's TikTok or whatever other platforms are coming out. So you want to be, and I'm not saying any of those things are bad. You should do a lot of that stuff. You should do LinkedIn. You should do SEO. You should do pay per click. But you need to know, where does this fit in your overall strategy, and that's going to inform the tactical side and the tactics that you implement and use.
Yeah. A lot of my listeners will have heard this quote before because it's one of my favorites. It's from The Art of War. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat.
That's beautiful. That's 100% right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I was talking with a new client just the other day, and we were talking about uh, demand generation. I was bringing that up as a topic because what he was describing is that he was going to create a new category. So
Right.
they're in this particular market that's
Yep.
a not an unknown market. It's
Yep.
got some popularity to it. There's
Hmm.
some search volume there if you do the keyword research. But they wanted to
Yep.
create this subcategory or this kind of related category that is very unusual and it spans multiple categories, and he even has a name for it that sounds kind of cool and mysterious, but it's not a term that anyone has ever used in conversation. So my
Mm.
concern there is that, well, you're not going to get any traffic for a keyword like that. Nobody knows what that is.
Mm.
Nobody's used that in a sentence. You're going to have to do demand generation. And I gave this example of how Mr. Rogers was not a popular search keyword or search query for quite a while until the movie came out, the documentary about him, and
Mm-hmm.
then search volume really spiked. And so that was an example of demand generation where the folks creating the movie created the demand for that search volume and not the other way around. And he's like, yeah, we got to do that. so
Yeah.
so how do you do something like that if you're just trying to tactically chase after the next shiny object, do these random acts of marketing? It's just going to be a colossal waste of time and money. So what would you tell this guy, like how to blaze a path forward with that new category they're thinking of creating?
My advice would be yes, it is possible to create a new category. Yes, it is possible to create demand and new sort of mind share in an audience, but it's very difficult. It's very expensive and it takes a lot of time. It's kind of like I think the deodorant industry spent like millions and millions of dollars and probably like 50 years to convince everybody that they smell and that they have to be buying deodorant and using it every day, right? And now there's demand for it, and they've created that demand, and it does work, right? But it's very difficult, very expensive to do. Um, I I prefer to tap into existing demand. I prefer to find a market where there's a gap where it's what they call a market that's an inch wide but a mile deep. So it's a kind of like a long tail, but there are a lot of people who are interested. There are a lot of people who are searching for a solution there, and just tap into that market. If you open a brand new restaurant, your dream come true is a starving crowd, right? So you want to tap into the existing demand. You don't want to convince people who are already full to come and buy your food. If you're a restaurateur, you want to tap into a market that's already hungry, that they just line up and they buy what you've got. So I think demand generation is possible, but it's very difficult. It's very expensive, and I don't think it's the best way to do marketing. I would rather tap into existing demand, and there always is a gap in the marketplace where you can tap into.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a harder road to hoe, if that's the right expression.
Mm,
But I'm not against them doing it. I just don't think that that's the easiest path
mm.
to cash. Speaking of which, how would you recommend they or anyone listening gauge the success of any of their marketing initiatives? Like ROI is crucially important, return on
Yes.
investment, but there are different ways of measuring the return on investment. There are even different acronyms like ROAS, return on ad spend, and so forth. So, how do you recommend these listeners start
Yep.
tracking a baseline and then that delta that will show that what they're doing is actually working and profitable?
Well, it really gets back to what are your goals, and as funny as it sounds, the goal of your company may not be to generate profit, right? So I'll give you an example. This is particularly prevalent in Silicon Valley, where your goal is to get market share, get the number of users up, the number of people going, because your monetization strategy is selling out for $1 billion to Google or Facebook.
Right,
So
right.
you,
Monthly
you,
active
you
users, yeah.
monthly active users and all of that. So if that's your strategy, then losing money on acquiring users or customers is not a problem. Whereas other businesses that are cash flow style businesses, then the only measure that really matters is return on investment. And return on investment can be a difficult thing to calculate because attribution is not not a perfect science. So sometimes, especially if you're advertising across multiple channels, figuring out what part of what channel triggered somebody to buy. Was it your TV ad, or was it your internet ad that made them buy, or was it a combination of both? So attribution can be tricky, but it really comes in. It really depends on what's the goal of your business. Is your goal of your business to make a profit? Is it to be a lifestyle business? Is it to get as many users as possible and cash out? So really comes back down to the planning process. So what do you want to do? How is this going to end, basically? So, and that's part of what I talk about in a one-page marketing plan. Is, Neil Armstrong said there are only two problems we had to solve when going to the moon, right? It was how do we get there, and then how do we get back, right? So they were the two problems we needed to solve. And so many business owners, they're focused on just getting there, and they don't figure out how to get back. And by that I mean, how is this business going to end? How am I going to exit this business? Because one day you're going to get bored, or you're going to get sick, or you're going to see a better opportunity, or you're going to want to do something else, or you're going to want to pass the business on to your kids, or you're going to sell it. And so if your goals are not clear, and if you haven't set up your business in a way that it is possible to exit, then you're going to have a pretty hard time of it. So you need to...
In fact, I say that if you don't have an exit strategy, you have a job. You're self-employed.
Yes.
You don't have a business.
And I've seen so many times, it's just tragic, like really good businesses, and then they go to sell, and the business is worthless because it's all in the business owner's head. They are the business, right? They don't have a business. They are the business. And so it's critical to be thinking about, how is this going to end? Am I looking to sell to a bigger competitor? Am I looking to pass this on to my children? Am I looking to get franchisees on board, or whatever else, whatever your strategy is? And so your strategy is really going to inform what you're going to do from a marketing perspective, and what you're going to do from a return on investment perspective. So you might think, look, it's okay for us to lose money for the next 2 years because we just want to grab market share, and then when we've got a 30% market share, then we can basically buy out our two biggest competitors and essentially have a monopoly and own this market. So that's a strategy, right? So it's going to be very, very highly dependent on what you want to do as a business owner, and what your exit is going to be.
Right. So begin with the end in mind, as Stephen
begin with the end
Covey
in mind.
Said. Yes.
Exactly.
So once you've identified what your end game is, presumably there's a process that you have created, or that you walk your reader through in the book on the competitive analysis and the strategies and how to execute on all that, and how to gauge success, etc. Can you walk us through all that? Like what's the number of steps or segments to this, and what are they?
Look, I think it's pretty simple. It's a matter of you testing and measuring and getting feedback from your clients, and creating that feedback loop. And I love how Jeff Bezos talks about, look, don't worry. So many people are really hung up on their competitors, and who's competitive to me, and what's my competitor doing, and what have they got on their website, and how much are they pricing, and all of that sort of thing. Jeff Bezos talks about focusing on your customers rather than focusing on your competitors. Too many people are too focused on what their competitors are doing. I'm not saying ignore your competitors and forget about the competitive landscape, but if you can create that world-class experience for your client, if you can really deliver that wow, where literally what you do is remarkable. And when I say that, it doesn't have to be something where you're inventing something brand new that's never been thought of before. Sometimes it's just a little twist on something you're already doing. Having that feedback loop where you're testing something, you're measuring, and then you're feeding that feedback back into your process, that iterative process, that is so important. And the other part of it is having that skunk works in your business. So having that thing where you're testing things that are maybe not going to give you a return on investment today, but you're kind of like taking a smart bet on something that might happen in the future. And like, as an example, if Blockbuster Video had have been smart, they would have had a little project around streaming video, right? Just dipping their toe in, seeing if it's working, and then when they're seeing that the market is shifting and everything's shifting, they could have capitalized on that or acquired a company that's in that. And now, unfortunately, there's one Blockbuster Video left in the entire world. It's in Oregon, and it's become a tourist attraction, right? Because they had the audience, they just didn't keep up with what was happening in the marketplace. They were ignoring the feedback from their customers. They wanted to keep charging late fees, and we all know the story, right? Now we've got Netflix, Hulu, all of those other
And Disney
services,
Plus,
and
which
Disney Plus and
blew
Apple.
away all projections with 10
Yes,
million signups in a matter
yes,
of, what was it, 24 hours or something like that? It's
yes,
insane.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And
So,
anyways,
so they could have owned that market. I mean, they had the audience. They could have been the ones, but they didn't have that feedback loop and that iterative process, and they were, we all know how the story ended.
yeah, yeah. So this discussion reminds me of another interview I did on the show with Joey Coleman. Do you know Joey?
I don't.
Uh, Never Lose a Customer Again
Oh,
is,
yeah, yeah, I know the
yeah,
book. Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
It's a great book, great guy. He's been a friend for years. We met through Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership.
Oh, wow.
Uh, yeah, like back in 2011 or something like that, 2012. And so we talked about in that episode about the first 100 days of a new client or customer being critically important, and what are you
Mm,
doing to surprise and delight that new customer so that they feel uh, indebted to you, like embedded, even like you're embedded within their company and vice versa, and like partners and not client vendor sort of situation.
yep.
It was a really powerful conversation. So listeners, definitely check out that episode if you haven't listened to it already. But I'm curious what sort of surprise and delight, kind of remarkable things, because you alluded to Seth Godin and the Purple Cow
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
remarkability being worthy of remark, having some
Hmm.
point of difference. So what are your remarkable points of difference that you offer your new clients in that first 100 days or whatever that time period is for you?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely you're absolutely right, and I think the 100 days is important, and even well beyond that, the clients have been with you for years and years. They're kind of like that good wife who keeps the business running and the cash flow happening, and they're often the ones that are ignored the most because people are always going after the new client, the new client, the new client, whereas the old clients have been really taking care of you for a long time are often ignored. But for both segments, it's about giving them what they need, giving them what they want, but selling them what they need. And I'll use an illustration. So I may want washboard abs, six pack abs. And so I go to a personal trainer, and then the personal trainer says, okay, well, you need a nutrition plan, you need an exercise plan. But so they're giving me what I need, but also what I want. And so that's what I find the best businesses do. So often, if I were, as you asked the question about my own business, so often people come to me to do marketing campaigns, let's plan and let's do some marketing campaigns, and then we start working together or we start talking, and I find out, hang on, you don't have the systems in place, you don't have maybe the business systems in place, or maybe you don't even have the technical systems in place. Like we need a CRM system, we need a better website, we need those kind of things. So we work on the things that you need, and then we get back. So often they're not ready to run a campaign because quite simply they don't have a lead capture, they don't have lead nurturing, they don't have the processes in place or the technical systems in place. So we work on the things that they actually need so that we can give them what they want, which is new clients coming in the door, new people doing business with them. And so that's kind of the core stuff. But then there's the peripheral things. So, very simple things that, it's people don't do simple things because they're easy to do, but they're also easy not to do. So an example of this. So whenever I speak to a prospect on the phone, I'll always send them a couple of books and a handwritten note. Like literally almost nobody does that. Like something as simple as a handwritten note, because this is something that's a pattern interrupt. People are used to kind of sending texts or getting texts or emails or whatever, but very few people send handwritten notes these days. So it's a pattern interrupt. When someone gets one, they're like, "Oh wow, this is different. This is something that's kind of really positioning you as different." And it kind of taps into what Robert Cialdini talks about. He talks about what triggers reciprocity, and he talks about three things. He says things that are meaningful, things that are unexpected, and things that are personal. So if you hit those three, that's something that really triggers reciprocity in people. So if I know something's going on in your life and I write you a handwritten note saying, Stefan, I hope everything went well with XYZ. I mean, that's something that's meaningful to you. That's something that's personal to you. So it's not just a broadcast that I've sent to everyone. And it's usually unexpected. So those kind of interactions, I find, are things that are really powerful from delivering a world-class experience.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, because this is a really important point. By the way, I had Bob on this podcast. So Bob Cialdini was a guest here not too long ago, and
nice.
Yeah, it's a great episode. So when he explained personal, meaningful, and unexpected, he gave the example of like a holiday card being the opposite, right? Where you expect that, so you're numb to it. You just don't really. There's nothing memorable about it. If it's meaningful to you, but it's not meaningful to them, because let's say it's a pen with your company logo and name on it. They could care less, it's a throwaway. But if it's got their name on it, now it's something that they want to carry around with them.
Yes.
So that's meaningful. And that's also personal. Unexpected means that if it's not tied into any particular holiday, maybe you invent a holiday. Maybe you say, it's I don't know, the anniversary of the day that you signed the contract, right? So you've been with us for a year, and you get a little shock and awe package, to use Dan Kennedy terminology, shock and awe box. Maybe it's got balloons and confetti and stuff. Not one of those kind of boxes that you open up and the confetti explodes in your face. I'm not talking about that kind, although you'll find plenty of examples of that on YouTube. But the kind where you're just like, wow, I feel special. I feel like I'm meaningful to you as the vendor or the service provider. It's totally personal to me, because this is my holiday, and it's totally unexpected, at least the first year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah. And so, I mean, we could have a whole episode on just how to deliver a world-class experience. But the other part that I find is, creating a bit of a sense of theatre around your products and service. So many people deliver their products or services in just a boring way, and it's not about clowning around or that sort of thing, but it's really about just creating something that's a little bit different. So like creating a bit of a wow experience. Like I don't know if you remember that example of CD Baby, where they have that confirmation email when you've ordered a CD off their website. I mean, I don't think they sell CDs anymore, but instead of a boring confirmation email, hey, here's your tracking number, it'll be there soon, like almost 99.9% of e-commerce sites do, they had this crazy story where, hey, we put your CD in a velvet box and it's on its way in our private jet to you and all of that. And it created just that confirmation email created like a viral sensation. And it's just about creating a little bit of theatre around what you do, because people will not tolerate being bored, So you want to almost entertain your audience as much as you want to deliver the product or service that you do.
Yeah, and give them a story that they can tell others. Like
Yes.
when I had Dr. Flint McLaughlin on the show from Mech Labs, Marketing Experiments, and Marketing Sherpa. And as a thank you for having him on my show, he sent me a book. But it was so nicely wrapped and everything. I kept the wrapping.
Nice.
You see here, I'm for those
Ah,
of you
yeah,
that
yeah.
are seeing the video, it's got a seal, a wax seal on the envelope, and
That's
then
awesome.
the book itself inside just feels like such a cool little book. It's got, I don't know, like a feeling of a really high end
Mm.
planner, and then you open up in the corner the inside cover has this really cool design. It almost feels like a Da Vinci journal or something, like from Leonardo da Vinci. So that's memorable. It's remarkable. It's a great story, and I've told it multiple times. In fact, you might have even heard me tell it if you've listened to a lot of my episodes. And then there's Woot.com, which I was a huge fan of, like a rabid fan of, well before it was acquired by Amazon. They had the most hilarious, awesome copywriters and copywriting. It was definitely worthy of remark. And then they had these really funny, clever campaigns that they would do, like they had woot offs and bags of crap, and everybody wanted to get the bags of crap. If they were auctioning off a bag of crap, and that's what they called it, bag of crap, then it was like moths to the flame, and it was sold out within seconds. The server became like unresponsive. I never ended up getting one of those bags of crap. I'm still disappointed about that. But it is like what do they call that in Australia? It's like a not a grab bag, but there's a word for it.
A lucky dip.
Lucky dip. That's what it is. I remember that from living in New Zealand. Yeah, so it was lucky dip. And some people got like really cool big screen TV or something, and they spent $40 or whatever the cheap price was, but they got some really cool stuff. And then there were other folks who got something that was just kind of funny and cute and not worth $40, but everybody proudly took photos or video of them unboxing the bag of crap when it arrived and then posting it everywhere. It was a lot of fun. So I wholeheartedly agree with you that we got to create more theater, more of a wow factor with whatever our product or service is, even if it's boring. Like, do you know of a really boring product or service company that created something really theatrical and wow?
I do. Like when you so think of Dollar Shave Club, right? So they was selling ordinary, cheap men's razors, the same that you'd get at Walmart or Amazon or wherever.
I think they
Nothing
would
special.
beg to differ on being the same, but
Well,
please proceed. Yeah.
I know for a fact that they're made in the same factory as pretty much all the other razor blades. So there was nothing unique about the product whatsoever. But they tapped into they created, first of all, a humorous campaign and all of that sort of stuff, but they put a little unique twist. Now it comes as a subscription. So they tapped into men's hatred of going to the store, running out of razor blades and all of that. Now razor blades come by subscription. You never have to worry about it. They're reasonably priced and all of that sort of stuff. So, and they ended up selling to, I think, Unilever for over $1 billion, and they're not creating any kind of crazy tech. They're not inventing iPhones or some kind of software as a service or anything. They're selling the cheap standard men's razor blades, but they just do it as a subscription service.
Yeah. And then there's the Squatty Potty, which is pretty darn
Yes.
boring and the opposite of sexy, really,
Yes.
because
Yes.
it's just a plastic,
Yeah.
what's the word? It just escaped me. Stool. It's just a plastic stool that you put under your toilet. Like,
Yes.
wow, that's pretty Amazing.
Yeah.
Not.
Um,
But then they hired the Harmon brothers to create this viral video campaign, which
yes.
created this massive amount of demand and buzz, and the company blew up. They became hugely successful. By the way, Daniel Harmon from Harmon Brothers was a guest on this show. So if you're interested in learning more about how to create viral video ad campaigns, that's an episode worth listening to. Yeah, these are all great examples. But what would you tell somebody who says, well, I'm not that creative and I don't have the budget to hire some fancy Madison Avenue ad agency? About as far as I get is watching Mad Men. So what do I
You,
do?
you really don't need a big budget at all. Like if you have a look at if we have a look at another example, do you remember Blendtec?
Yeah, of
So
course.
they just sell blenders, and there's a guy with a camera, and he's blending weird stuff. He's blending golf balls, blending iPhones, and all of
Yeah,
that.
I
How
actually
much?
know the inside story on that. So
Oh, okay.
that was Greg Wright, their director of marketing, who was walking past the testing room one day, saw a big mess that Tom Dixon, the founder, had left because he always liked to jam 2x4s into the blenders and make a big mess trying to see if he could break the blenders. And there's sawdust everywhere and shards of the 2x4s and stuff. And he thought, geez, we really should film this. And they spent about $100 on supplies. They already used a camera that they already had. Yeah, they just bought some marbles and rake and golf club and that sort of stuff. Some light bulbs and things like that. And then they just started to blend these things and post them to YouTube. So it started like on a total shoestring budget, but having that foresight to see that, wow, this could be something that people could enjoy watching. And then they did something very clever and had a lot of foresight about, and that is they didn't just stick it up on blendtec.com. Right? They created a whole microsite around it.
Yes.
So they had willitblend.com, which made it a destination for the journalists and the bloggers and so forth to point to and send all the traffic and the link juice and so forth to there instead of just to the YouTube channel. And YouTube doesn't need any more link equity. I think they're pretty good with that. And they don't share any of that with us. All those external links are to us, to our sites, are no followed. So they don't pass any link equity out from youtube.com. So we need to have a destination that is more enticing to the journalists and the bloggers and the webmasters than our YouTube channel or whatever the YouTube video is that they are talking about in that particular post or article. So that was super smart, and that caused them to get a lot more links than they probably would have if they just hung it off of blendtec.com/willitblend or funny videos or whatever, right?
Yes. And the beauty of it, I mean, is they're telling their story. Like everybody has a story. Like I'm sure that other blenders can blend golf balls and iPhones and everything like that. That's probably not unique to Blendtec, but they're telling a story and they're demonstrating it in an interesting way. And so the point is, don't be afraid to tell your story. Don't be afraid to tell people what goes into making your product or service, because a lot of people think, oh, well, everybody in my industry does that. Like the guy from Blendtec might have said, well, all blenders can blend a golf ball, or all blenders can, do this, and there's nothing remarkable there. But telling your story and showing people all the trouble that you go to make your product or service as good as it is, I think that's a really, really powerful thing.
Yeah. And there's something about Tom that's really endearing. He's the actual founder of the company. The company, Blendtec's been around for years, for decades.
Yeah.
It wasn't the first marketing they'd ever done. It was the most successful marketing they'd ever done. But they've been around, very successful, and they had a whole kind of industrial footprint as well, where they were selling in bulk to restaurants and things like that. Mm-hmm. So they were in good shape, but you know the adage that facts tell, stories sell. There was a story to get behind. Like, oh, I really like this guy. I like what he stands for. He's just good, salt of the earth, kind of like nerdy,
Yes. Yes.
old guy, and he's practically giddy about taking this at the time an iPod and
Yeah.
sticking it into a blender and destroying it, gleefully. So that is a story worth spreading, and that's the beginning of a whole viral sensation. But you can never like plan for that. You can set all the things in motion to make it feasible or possible, but you can't control that destiny. It's either going to happen or it's not, depending on how the community, how it lands with that community, how the community reacts with it, and also the external situation. Like if there's some stupid tweet that gets dropped by you know who, and everybody's buzzing about that, and that was your big launch day. Well, you can't help that, and you just lost the opportunity because everybody was distracted. So, just set the things up to win, but don't assume that it's all gonna, happen in the way that you want it to. Just have contingencies and all that in place as well, and which I guess is part of the marketing plan, isn't it? Having contingencies.
It is. It is. And I mean, having something go viral and sensational and all that is all fantastic. But really, I want to go viral within my customer base and within my audience. So that's really who matters. I mean, fantastic if a million kind of random YouTubers or someone watches my video or whatever. But really, who are your people? Who are your tribe? They're the people who you want to be famous within and known and telling your story. And so that's much easier to achieve than say, hey, I want something to go viral and everybody in the world kind of see it and know about it.
Yeah. With the caveat, though, that if I can get a lot of the linkerati, the high authority, high trust website owners to pay attention to this cool thing that I've created, then I've got serious leverage because it went viral with that community, even though they may not ever buy my product, or it might be completely a million miles away from my target audience. But that's totally okay because I just got that effect of the rising tide that lifts all boats, all those powerful, high authority, high trust links pointing to my site, to a particular blog post or contest or whatever it is, some sort of content marketing campaign. That could be a game changer.
Very true, very true, and I think that's part of what we're doing now internally as a project is doing more and more PR on external websites. PR has become a lot easier to hack, and because understanding now that newsrooms are very under the pump, they've got fewer resources than ever, and they've got to produce more than ever. And so, if you can leverage that quite easily. If you serve something on a silver platter to a journalist, and it's not too self-promotional, then 9 times out of 10 they'll just run it. And so we've been experimenting a lot with that. We've got mentions in Forbes, in Inc., Business.com, Thrive Global. So, and we're really spending a lot more time on that, and I believe as an SEO strategy, that's going to be powerful as well.
Yeah. And have you gotten any TV appearances from doing that?
I haven't done any. I've done TV appearances in Mexico when I was on my book tour in Mexico. I haven't done any in Australia or the United States yet. But
you should totally do that. Actually, there's an episode on my show about this. Of course, okay. Clint Arthur, and I took his workshop. I learned how to pitch TV producers, cold calling them in the middle of the night.
Wow.
Ungodly hours of like 3 and 4 and 5 in the morning, because they're getting ready for the morning show, and they're the only ones in the newsroom, the people that are working on the morning show. So if you call at 4 in the morning, they'll probably pick up. And if you have a well-rehearsed pitch and you've got that email ready to go that is just only needing the email address, and if they try to get rid of you and say, well, can you just send it, can you just email me? I'm like, sure, what's your email address? Okay, got it. Okay, did you get it? I just hit send. Can you make sure that the PDF opens? Like, okay, fine. And then I got them. If I didn't get them already with my awesome, well-rehearsed pitch, when they said, well, send me an email, and I was ready to go, and I had just sent it, and I'm like, can you check to see that you got it and it opens okay? And they're like, wow, this is really good. Right?
I love it.
You can get TV appearances with people who have never heard of you before, and you just have a strong offer for a strong angle or hook, angle that or hook that is local to their market, that is timely, so you can newsjack on current events, and has an emotional appeal. It's the emotional hook is the most important. Like
Yes.
get props or a dog or somebody like onto the segment with you that really makes this for great entertainment, for good TV. And the opposite of that is like me trying to get on just a regular, run-of-the-mill news show where they get run-of-the-mill like average Joes and Janes watching the TV show, and me talking about SEO. Like, that would put them to sleep. So that's the opposite of good TV. So I'm never pitching like, hey, here's a great segment about how to SEO your website to the top of Google and how I did that for Chanel and Sony and Zappos and Velvo and all that. No, that's like,
Yes.
or, sorry, we can't help you. But if you have something that is universally applicable, then you get the yeses, and you get them right then and there. I got booked.
Yes.
I have a recording of one of these calls where I put it with my Authority Builder course, like this, like little extra bonus, a 5-minute audio recording of me pitching and getting a yes for a TV producer. It's pretty awesome. So the Clint Arthur episode, and Cameron Herold also has a great book called Free PR, and he was a guest. So that's a little different angle, talking more about getting journalists and so forth to pick up on your pitches. But between those two episodes, definitely they're going to set you up for a whole new level of success. So are you gonna take my challenge and make some cold calls at 4 a.m? What do you think, Allan?
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. I love that. That's a great strategy. The only problem I can see for that is I've got a face for radio, so which is why I appear on podcasts a lot.
Oh my God. Okay. So you need to listen to my other show, Get Yourself Optimized, because there's some really great personal development episodes about how to love yourself. So you are a beautiful soul inside and out. So I'm sure that any TV producer who is worth their salt is going to just be falling all over themselves to have you on TV.
Well, I appreciate that, Stefan.
So we don't have much time left. I wanted to just switch to like a lightning round for the last couple of minutes. You game?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. So what are your thoughts on partnerships and JVs? When I say JVs, I don't mean like the traditional joint ventures. I mean like the strategic alliances that are basically I'll mail for you, you mail for me, or we'll be on each other's webinars, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think they're great. And I think especially when you're aligned but not competitive, it's a great way of acquiring customers at a very low cost.
Yep. Okay. So how about competitive intelligence? Is there some sort of little secret hack or trick or technique that you use that really helps you to understand what's going on inside that competitor's head? Like, for example, I like to do specialized searches on Google. I've got this book, besides The Art of SEO, I've got Google Power Search, which is all about how to do power searches, power let's say marketing plan, file type colon, PDF, or in all caps, file type colon, DOC, or in all caps, file type colon, DOCX, and then confidential, right? Minus
Got it.
template. So I have to do the minus template because otherwise I'm going to get a whole pile of templates back. So that would be an example of getting a big pile of competitors. Well, not necessarily competitors. I probably have to add another keyword in there, like for my industry, right? But that is going to laser into business plans and marketing plans that were not meant for public consumption. Do you have any kind of secret hacks like that to help understand what's going on with the competitors?
Yeah, look, I don't know if I've got a secret hack. I mean, really, what I do is I think you should buy your competitors' products because that gives you a first-hand view of their customer experience, where the gaps are, what they're doing wrong, what they're doing right. So I think you should be buying competitor products on a regular basis, at least mystery shopping your competitors to see how are they pitching, how are they offering what they offer. Like I said, you don't want to be too over-focused on your competitors, but you need to know what's happening in the competitive landscape.
Yeah, I love that. I especially like the part about where you're. I don't know that I love mystery shopping. That feels a little disingenuous, a little sketchy, a gray hat to me. But I love the part about buying your competitors' products. Like if you, let's say you're, I don't know, selling the next competitor to Dollar Shave Club. In fact, one of my clients has a 99centrazor.com, so they are a competitor to Dollar Shave Club. They should sign up. They should get the product. They should get that experience of receiving the box in the mail and opening it up. And what's that experience like?
Yes.
Totally. I've never bought SEO from a competitor. Maybe I should do that.
Well, there you go.
Okay, last quick question. So if folks wanted to take the next step beyond just reading your book and they wanted to, let's say, take a course or go through the, your boardroom program, your business boardroom, what would be their process to kind of get in the door and get evaluated by you and make sure that they put their best foot forward and get in?
So you can basically join my mailing list on the website, which is successwise.com. On the contact page, you can contact us and request coaching or request one of our other products. So really, we have our business boardroom program, which is kind of the intensive one-on-one coaching. We've got a membership, and we've got a course based on the one-page marketing plan book. So they're a few ways we can engage. But really, the best place is start with the book, and then join in the conversation, opt in on the mailing list, and we can talk further.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Allan. This was fabulous and entertaining and educational and actionable, which is really important because we love to hear great stories of successes and so forth, but what's it mean for us? Like, how do we move our business forward? So thank you for bringing all of that to our listeners. And so listeners, now I invite you to go check out all the resources that we talked about that are all detailed out on the show notes, marketingspeak.com/226. There's the full transcript. There's a checklist of actions to take from this episode. It's all there. And Allan, thank you again. We'll catch you on the next episode of Marketing Speak. This is your host, Stefan Spencer, signing off.